Welcome to Midnight Mule FPL. I'm Midnight Mule and this is the video for the 5% series for Gameweek 16 for FPL. And I know none of you care about this, but it's been a really difficult day for me trying to get all this together, and I had to go to the dentist. I've been very numbed up. I think it's worn off now. It's just been a difficult day, but I'll do what I can. So in this series, we look at a smallish selection of players relative to the vast number of hundreds of players you can choose from. And the idea being is if you only choose the popular players, you should finish in the top 5% globally, which means you'll do all right in your mini league. And the reason for that is it's the popular players that you don't own that do well that hurt your rank. So by owning the popular players, they're not going to be hurting you. And if someone who's lowly owned does well, it really doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt your rank. Hopefully that made sense. So I'll start by quickly looking at how the players did last game week in game week 15. So for the more popular keepers, none of them did anything. Slightly less popular keepers, Martinez got 6 and that's all. For the defenders, Saliba got 9, 8 Nori 4. These are the most popular ones. No one did anything else. Then slightly less popular defenders, Konza 8, Lewis 4. And then the ones that really don't matter at all, they got nothing. For the midfielders, Palmer 18, Mbemo 13, Fernandez 9. And then the lower owned midfielders, Bowen 12, Johnson 4. And then the really low owned midfielders, Son 7, Garnacho 4. For the forwards, we have Isak 8, Wood 8, Haaland 7. And then Vardy 12, Raul 8, Solanke 6, Havertz 5. Basically this week, if you had Palmer as captain, there's a good chance you got a green arrow. If you didn't have him as captain, you were far less likely to get a green, but it was possible. If you didn't own Palmer, you almost certainly didn't get a green arrow. Now for the upcoming game week 16, we're going to look at the 4 positions, starting with goalkeepers. And when we look at each position, I'm biasing it towards the players that I think are going to be highest owned around the ranks we're likely to be when we come to the weekend. So, for example, Raya, unless he breaks a leg tonight, he's playing in Champions League. He's going to be the most highly owned keeper, which means if you don't own him and he does well, he's going to hurt your rank unless the keeper that you're playing matches him or does better. Arsenal's next 3 fixtures, Everton, Palace, Ipswich, reasonable chance of maybe 2 clean sheets in that lot. They're then away to Brentford. Brentford are very good at home, so I wouldn't expect a clean sheet there. The next most highly owned keeper, even allowing for those that put him on his bench, is Fabianski. He's only 4.1 million, but some managers are actively playing him because unless you've got Raya or possibly Alisson, who we'll talk about in a minute, it doesn't matter what keeper you've got. They're going to get 2 points, 3 points, sometimes 6 points. It's really hard this season, it seems, to get clean sheets. Now, Alisson's just back from injury, but at the moment he's so lowly owned. If he does well, it really isn't going to affect your rank. But it may be in the next week or two he gets more popular, in which case he'll appear in the system and we have to start talking about him. I think he's currently 5.4. So if you wanted to buy him, he's down as Becker, Alisson Becker, in the system. If you'd rather have him than Raya, that's fine. But Raya is the one that's going to hurt your rank. And then the rest of these keepers, it really doesn't matter which one you have because you never know when they're going to get a clean sheet. And that's Sanchez, who's not particularly popular, it seems, with the Chelsea fans. He does seem to make quite a few mistakes. Harry, FPL Harry, he's a Chelsea fan. He seems to think that Sanchez is going to get dropped at some point in the near future. So I'd say don't buy Sanchez. If you've got him, that's fine. You can keep him for now, but he's not worth bringing in. The other keepers we have are Flecken, Henderson, and then Sales, Martinez, Pickford. Ward represents any 4 million keeper that doesn't play on your bench. So any of these keepers may get a clean sheet, but the chances are they're going to get 2, 3, possibly 4 points if they get lots of saves. Now the defenders are a bit more important because it's slightly easier to get defenders that are going to get returns because they've got the chance of a clean sheet and the chance of an assist or possibly even a goal. Now Saliba, as of this coming weekend, is going to be the most important defender, which means if you don't have him and he does well, he does better than the defenders you have got, he's going to be hurting your rank. He's gone up to 6.2 million, and the reason he's grown so much in popularity is because Gabriel, who's the better choice, has been out the last couple of game weeks. He's not playing in the Champions League tonight. We don't know when he's going to be back. If we knew he was going to be out for a couple of weeks, it may be worth holding him to save a transfer. But if we don't know and he ends up being out for 8 weeks, we're going to wish we got rid of him as soon as we could have. So if you've got Gabriel and you've got at least 3 other defenders that are playing, it's all right to keep him. But if you'd rather sell him for someone who you're sure is going to play, that is all right as well. But if you do sell him, I suggest you get a defender that's going to be a good defender to have. So Saliba is an all right switch for Gabriel. Aït-Nouri this coming weekend, I think, is going to be the 3rd highest owned player. And that's because he's at home to Ipswich, at home to Ipswich, away to Leicester. And that's at the end of a long run of nice fixtures that Wolves have had. So if you've not got Aït-Nouri, I'd say don't bother bringing him in, even though he may hurt your rank if he does well. So don't sell Gabriel for Aït-Nouri would be my recommendation, because after Leicester, their fixtures aren't so good. And most engaged managers with Aït-Nouri or any Wolves player will probably be selling them. I need to get my teeth in. Pedro Porro, he's a popular player. I don't own him and he doesn't scare me in as much as I never really think he's going to do anything. Occasionally he does get a return. But for me, it's so rare. He's 5.6 million. There's other things I'd rather do with him, with that money rather. But if you've got him, he's fine to have. Away to Southampton this game week, a chance of an attacking return. I suspect Southampton will score. So I wouldn't be bringing him in, but he's okay. So Trent is growing in popularity. He is 7 million. He's the most expensive defender in the system, but he's back from injury now. Liverpool have a very good defence. He's got a chance of clean sheets. He's also got a chance of assists or maybe the occasional goal. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 2 or 3 weeks he becomes the most important defender. If you can go from Gabriel to Trent because you've got 0.8 kicking around, that would be quite a nice move. Virgil van Dijk won't get the same attacking returns as Trent, but he's 90 minutes as long as he's fit. He is 0.6 cheaper than Trent, but Trent is probably worth the extra money if you can afford him. If you wanted both, that would be fine. It's probably not worth having more than 3 good defenders and then just have 2 that are hopefully going to play but rubbish, because you want your money to be in the midfield and in the forward slots. So if you could afford Porro, Saliba, Trent and Virgil van Dijk, I think it's probably not worth it. I'd say get rid of Porro and get someone else. And then Gvardiol is still on the first page of important defenders. So it's the Manchester derby this week, then they're away to Villa, but then Man City have quite a nice run of fixtures. And it may well be that Gvardiol grows in popularity and people are going to want him. So although a lot of managers have sold him, he's probably going to be bought back in the next couple of weeks, especially if Man City get their act together. And I think he's still their joint second highest goal scorer in the Premier League for Man City. And then the less important defenders, Robinson's dropping in popularity, but if you've got him and you can hold on to him, they're home to Southampton next game week. That could be a nice fixture. He is an attacking defender, only 4.7 million. And if he's one of your 3 that you have to play every week, he's perfectly all right. Aina, I wouldn't bother buying. 4.9 million. I'd definitely rather have Robinson. The Forest fixtures aren't great. They will keep some clean sheets, of course. I don't think he's worth having, but he's in here because he grew in popularity. Konza, 4.4. None of these defenders now I'm that bothered about. If you've got him, he's fine. Personally, I wouldn't be bringing him in. Mazraoui didn't even play the last United game. It seems like the United manager is still trying to find out what he wants to do with the various players. So I would say it's probably not worth buying any United players at the moment. And if you've got any, you want to move them on, that's fine, because you really can't be too sure of the minutes. Now, normally we'd say Onana and Fernandes are safe, but Fernandes got subbed off in the last game. He probably will always start, probably will normally get 90 minutes, but we don't know that he will now. And Onana, he does sometimes make mistakes. Is there going to be a time when he gets dropped? Probably not, but Onana's not even in the system anyway. Now, Lewis is suspended, 4.7 million. Don't bother buying him. If you've got him, you want to keep hold of him, that's fine. They're away to Villa, but after that, Man City have a nice run of fixtures. And he seems to be playing at least 60 minutes most game weeks. So on the odd occasion Man City get a clean sheet, he can get you some points. And last game week, he did get a goal, but then he got 2 yellows and sent off, so he only got the 4 points. And then Mikolenko, basically just bench fodder. He does play, bit bench fodder. And then the last page of defenders, we got Howard Bellis, 4.1 bench fodder. Burn, he's not bench fodder, but he's now so lowly owned. He's absolutely not worth buying. If you've got him and you've got more interesting moves to make, that's fine. He's okay to play. He's sometimes to get a clean sheet. Not worth buying though. And then Face is bench fodder. Vandenberg's bench fodder. Greaves is bench fodder. I think he's flagged. Van de Ven, he was popular. That's why he's in the system. He's finally back from injury, which is nice. But I'd say at 4.5 million, he's not worth buying. Regarding the midfielders, we still have Palmer, Salah, Saka. Having those three is what a lot of engaged managers are doing. It's absolutely worth having those three if you can get to them. If you don't own those three, then the one, let's say that you don't have, if they do well, that is going to hurt your rank. So it's very good insurance to buy those three. They're very highly owned. After them, even though Mbeumo is getting sold at the moment to release cash, he's still, I think, this weekend likely to be the 4th highest owned midfielder at the ranks we're looking at. So I wouldn't be buying him, but if you've got him, he's fine to keep at the moment. Equally, if you wanted to sell him to release cash, that's okay as well. And then Rodgers, he's quite popular because he's only 5.4 million. He plays most game weeks. He sometimes gets an attacking return. But the point of Rodgers is he plays, but he frees up money elsewhere. So some managers would have gone Mbeumo to Rodgers this week to free up some money to maybe buy Trent, for example, in defence. And then Fernandes, he is a good player, but at 8.5 million, it's really hard to justify that because he's not high enough owned where he's going to be hurting you. There's no point having Fernandes if you've got the choice, if you haven't got Palmer, Salah and Saka at the moment. But if you've got Fernandes and you want to keep him, that's fine. He is a good player. And then the slightly less important midfielders. Gordon, I'm saying Gordon is a good player. At home to Leicester, then away to Ipswich, then at home to Villa. But he is actually quite low owned. So if he does well and you don't have him, he's not going to hurt your rank. But if you want someone who's a bit different, who's likely to do well, Gordon is a nice choice. But 7.2 is quite expensive given the other players you're going to have to buy. Johnson, 6.7, I wouldn't buy him. He's all right, but not particularly highly owned anymore. Bowen's nice and consistent. He is 7.4 million, but over a stretch of games, he'll often get 5, 6, 7 points, occasionally 2, sometimes a bit more than 7. But he just ticks along. Probably the best player in a bad team there at West Ham. And then Semenyo seems to be playing perhaps a bit deeper at the moment than we were expecting initially. He is only 5.7. If you've got him, he's fine to keep, but I suggest you don't bother bringing him in. And then Smith Rowe, he rarely plays 90 minutes, if ever. Away to Liverpool this week, then at home to Southampton. So if you've got him and you want to save him for the Southampton game, that's fine. But if you want to sell him to free up the space, because you won't free up much money, that's all right as well. And then Luis Diaz, hardly anyone owns Luis Diaz now. He'll sometimes get goals. He is a very good player, and if we knew he was always playing, then he would be very popular. All the midfielders on this page now are so low owned, they're not going to hurt your rank, even if they do really well. So Son is a very good player, but at 9.8 million, there are probably better things you can do with that money, even though he will continue to get some good returns. McNeil's only 5.4 million. Everton have got a double game week coming up, but that could be a few months away. He will become popular, assuming he stays fit, and by the time we get to the double game week, he'll be very highly owned. He's currently only 5.4 million. If you've got him and you want to think of him as bench fodder, that's fine. I'd say absolutely don't bother buying him at the moment though. And then Dibbling at 4.5, very good player in a very poor squad. Bench fodder, but he's a good player. Garnacho, I think, I've put don't buy, but I think it's possibly even worth selling him now because we still don't know which Man United players are going to be playing where and when. And at 6.3 million, there's better things you can probably do with the money. Now, if you've not got transfers to spare, you can keep him. You might get lucky, but he's really not a good player to have at the moment. And then Winks, I think he's still flagged. Regarding the forwards, Kuna's the most important forward at the moment. They've got Ipswich, then Leicester, but after that, he's likely to get dumped by loads of managers unless he does really well in those 2 games. So I'd say if you've not got him now, it's probably not worth buying him. And I've seen there are some managers actually selling him for someone else. I don't think it's worth selling him before the Ipswich game, but if you want to, you can. But if you don't own him and he does well in the Ipswich game, he is going to hurt your rank this week. Jackson is also a good player. He's also quite highly owned. Same with Pedro. So these 3 forwards are the 3 that are going to hurt your rank the most if they do well and you don't own them. But it's not worth bringing Kuna at the moment. Jackson's on 4 yellows, so he could be missing a game anytime soon. João Pedro's, Brighton have got some nice fixtures, and he's only 5.9 million. And if he's fit, he's going to be playing. So he's actually quite a nice choice. Isak is very popular. Some people are actually selling Kuna or Jackson this week to bring in Isak. Home to Leicester, away to Ipswich, then home to Villa. There's a reasonable chance of some good returns there. Personally, I don't think it's worth taking a hit to bring in Isak unless your team's in a lot of trouble. But if you can get to him for free, it's all right. But at the moment, Kuna, Jackson, João Pedro are going to hurt you more than Isak if they all got the same points. Wood is interesting. He's a bit like Bone. He just ticks along. I think he's had 1 double-digit return so far this season, but he scores in well over half the games. So at 6.5, he's quite good. He does take up a forward spot. If you've got him, I think it's worth keeping him because you just never know when he's going to score. He's a good player. Haaland's a good player, not worth the 14.9 million that he costs now. He's actually quite low owned now to the point that if he does well, it's not going to hurt you too much. In a couple of game weeks when they've got Everton, then Leicester, it may be some people are then going to try and buy him, especially if he does well before then. But at the moment, you don't need to fear Haaland too much if you don't own him. If you have got him, you've kept hold of him, good luck to you. You may want to just keep hold of him now because the fixtures should be improving. But if you want to sell him, that's fine. And then Watkins is a good player, but I notice he's flagged now. So I'd say don't buy him, but he's better than Wood in as much as I would expect him to have more chance of getting a double-digit return. But 9 million is a lot to spend when there's midfielders you want to buy, and there are a handful of decent premium defenders to have as well. And now for the much lower owned forwards, Vardy ticks along nicely. Every other game he seems to get a goal, sometimes the assist. Personally, I like Vardy because I used to go to Filbert Street to watch Leicester. He's only 5.6 million, so if you're needing a cheap forward who's quite good, he's all right. And then Solanke at 7.5, I did have him as green as a good player, but I changed him to okay. He's not worth the money now, so at 7.5 million, because he's so low owned, he's not going to be hurting you. And then Welbeck's back from injury. He's all right. He's low owned, so he's not going to hurt you. If you've got him, he's fine to keep hold of, but not worth bringing in. And then Havertz, he's not going to hurt you. He's a good player, but 7.9 million, I'd say he's not worth having. Because we're looking at who's going to be hurting you, Havertz is not going to hurt you. Raul Jimenez, he may do well, probably not this week, but next week at home to Southampton, 2 weeks after that home to Bournemouth. They're nice fixtures. He's only 5.5. Now, if I had 5.5, 5.6, had to choose someone from this page, I'd probably go Vardy, but there's probably not a lot in it. And if your front 3 was Vardy, Raul, Welbeck, that's all right because it saves you money to spend elsewhere, but it means the popular forwards on the previous page, you're in line to get a lot of pain if they do well. And then Cannon represents only 4.5 million forward of your choice that's not going to play. So regarding the benching order, I'm now going to look at first the keepers and the other players and suggest if these are the only players you've got, who should go on your bench. So the first player you see that you've got, I suggest is the player that would go on your bench. So if you've got a 4 million keeper that's not playing, of course they're on your bench. Then for this week, I'd suggest it be Henderson, Pickford, Flecken, Martinez, Sales, Fabianski, Sanchez and Raya. We're now going to look at the other players, and this is just my suggestion for the benching order. If you want to do something different, that's absolutely fine. But if you blindly follow these instructions, I think you'll do all right over the course of the season. The first player I show you that you've got, I suggest is position 3 in your bench, the next one position 2, and the last one position 1. And by choosing your bench, the other players sort themselves out. So Any 4.5 million striker that doesn't play, they're on your bench, of course. Then Lewis, he's suspended. Greaves, I think, is still flagged. Then there'll be Faust, Harwood Bellis, Mikolenko, Vanderberg, Winks, Mazuri, Konza, Van der Ven, Aina, Robinson, McNeil, Garnacho, Smith Rowe, Dibbling, Byrne, Raul, Rogers, Mbuemo and Semenyo. And then for the other players, we have Bowen, Pedro Porro, Aït-Nouri, Welbeck, Vardy, Virgil van Dijk, Johnson, Watkins, Fernandes, Solanke, Havertz, Wood, Gvardiol, Trent, Saliba, Gabriel. If you have Gabriel and Saliba, I would move one of them further down the ranking, probably Saliba. So if Gabriel doesn't play, Saliba comes in. If you want to play them both, that's fine. They are home to Everton. But if it was me, I'd move one of them further down. But I'm assuming you've probably only got one of those. And then Luis Diaz, João Pedro, Son, Gordon and Jackson. So regarding the captains, Palmer is a good choice for captain. They're at home playing Brentford. Brentford do let in a lot of goals away from home. So that looks good for Palmer. However, Chelsea have got a European game tomorrow night, Thursday, and they've got a very long travel. So a lot of their squad are not going to be in good condition. Now, Palmer's not going, so he's going to be fresh, but the players around him, depends how many of those went. So if it wasn't for the European game, he would be a very good choice. As it stands, he's still a good choice, but I think he's only going to be the second highest chosen after Salah. But I think it's going to be very, very close. Palmer and Salah, I think they're both good choices. And if you choose the wrong one, then it is really going to hurt your rank if the other one does better. But there's not a lot you can do about it. I think the most engaged managers, most of them are going to choose Palmer. But most managers that have both and don't do lots of research, they'll probably go for Salah. And Salah may well be the safer choice because I think he may have only blanked twice so far, whereas Palmer's blanked a lot more than twice. I'm currently thinking Palmer for myself, but I may switch it for Salah. Saka is also an alright choice. And then we've also got for forwards, Isak, Haaland and Guna. So any of those are fine for captain, any are fine for vice captain. Hopefully you can choose two of those. But if you can't or you don't want to, then any of the green forwards or midfielders on the previous pages, they'd be alright as well. As for the background picture, and my voice is nearly gone, we've got someone staying with us now, a friend of the family, and they're from Illinois, flew over today. And so what can I do? Harrison Ford, as you may know, is from Illinois. So here he is as Han Solo playing soccer, as they would call it. And there we had it. Hopefully that made sense. And that was quite a difficult video, quite a difficult day for me. Hopefully it's nice enough and easy enough to follow. Finishing the top 5%, you're not going to win the whole thing. But hopefully in your mini leagues at work or with your family, you'll do all right. And that's what this series is about. It's about just trying to do all right. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Bye.